Xavier.
In regards to gaining and earning respect, violence is absolutely necessary. But on the other hand, it also alerts the authorities. And everybody know that you can't get money and be violent.
I kind of met Inch through Nitty in high school. Well, actually, I didn't formally meet him. I heard about him in high school. I remember he was incarcerated at the time, and his face was in the paper, the Daily News. And Nitty brought the paper to school, and he was showing all of us. And that day, I was like, damn, your uncle's a G.
He was like everything like the stories that have been said. I think it was like a legend in the hood, not for nothing.
I mean, we all heard stories about Inch, you know what I'm saying? But he's nothing like the story that I heard, you know what I'm saying? He's a real cool, calm dude. Funny as hell, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, definitely respected and definitely calm.
So when I got arrested for the 7 guns and 130 grams of crack, I was actually sentenced to 7 1-to-3s. I got a 1 to 3 for each gun, and they ran them concurrent, which is together. And I also was sentenced to an additional 3.5 to 10.5 for the 130 grams of crack. That was also ran concurrent. So my full bid was 3.5 to 10.5. After 25 months, I was granted work release. But while I was during the 25 months, I went to school in prison. I was in a GED program. I got my GED, and then I enrolled into the college program, and I did a couple of semesters of college in there. So after being on work release for about 1.5 years, I was paroled, and things in New York was kind of slow. So I ended up going to the Midwest, Ohio. While I was out there, continued selling drugs. At some point, the feds got on to me, and they watched me for about 1.5 years. The investigation was here, almost 2 years. Hey, yo, son, what's your count?
We got roughly about 158,000, but that's not including what you have, though.
Hey, yo, Nitty.
Yo.
How much that nigga Pedro charging for a brick now?
Pedro want like 40 because of that drought shit right now. It's like 4 niggas in New York with weight. They all letting it go for like 40, 41. But one of them niggas is letting it go for 37. But his shit straight trash.
Damn, when y'all paying like half of that around Thanksgiving?
Or the mother.
Shit, we gonna rally up about 160,000. We still got work scattered around. Plus Nitty in the kitchen still cooking up that half a brick though. But what's the game plan?
Hey, yo, we're gonna be like 90,000 less than $250,000. See if your man gives us 4,500 grams for that shit.
It's like an extra half a brick right there. Let's see what he say when the money's right in front of him.
Alright, look, I'm out. Them young niggas in the complex pulled that toast out on you that one time.
Yeah.
They want 9 ounces, so let me know when you're done.
Man, fuck them niggas, but I got you, bro.
Alright, bet. I'm gonna shut out.
No, that's my shit. This your shit right here.
Oh no, this is the old shit from last time. I'm gonna leave that here. I'll be back for that.
Alright.
Hey, yo, I'm out, fam.
Alright, easy out there.
Yeah, no question. See y'all niggas later. Yo, Nitty, don't forget, let me know.
I got you, bro. Come over, yeah?
Yes, sir.
You in a rush?
No, sir.
License and registrations, please.
Is there a problem, officer?
Ask the questions. License and registrations, please.
Is everything okay?
Hang in there, I'll let you know.
You do me a favor, Tom? Can you keep your hand on the steering wheel?
Not doing anything, sir.
That's why he was in a rush. Top guy. Mr. Thomas, please step out of the car. Keep your hands where I can see him.
Is everything okay?
You're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. Do you understand these rights?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
I was eventually arrested for violating federal law. I was charged with conspiracy. I think it was conspiracy to distribute over 1,000 grams of cocaine and 500 grams of heroin. I was sentenced to, I was charged with conspiracy. I was sentenced for conspiracy and money laundering. I was given 9 years. And while I was locked up on that bid, I caught another charge. And I was arrested for having a prison weapon. And they gave me an additional 3 years. So my total sentence was 12 years. And I ended up doing a day over 10 years. And that was all federal. So at the time when I caught the new charge, I was actually being housed on Rikers Island because I was fighting another state case. And there was like some gang activity that was going on. A couple of gang members had assaulted another gang member, and they were shipped out the unit. They made the officers conduct what they call a shakedown. When they searched my cell, they found a weapon, and I was arrested and charged with possession of a weapon. Because I was in there, they sent me to the Bing, and I was, the Bing is the hole. I was given 90 days hold time. And while I was in the hole, that experience was like, it was crazy. And it's not the part of just being in the cell 23 hours a day, because they do give us 1 hour of rec, which we outside in a little cage, and smaller than our cell. We're in this cage and we just out there standing for an hour. So I was in the Bing for the 90 days, and just the stuff that we were subjected to, it was crazy. The police was coming down, they beating dudes down, shocking dudes with the electric shield. There was one incident where a gentleman, he had an argument with the officer, and they were bringing breakfast around about 5 o'clock in the morning. So his cell was next to mine. I heard him open his food slot, and then I heard something splash. What I realized was that the inmate threw piss in the officer's face. So the officer was like, all right, you got it. So again, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. So nobody got served breakfast that day. Everything stopped. About an hour later, a whole bunch of officers came down. The whole tier is dark. They kind of do that for intimidation purposes. So they made the whole tier dark. And they had that huge shield, electric. What they do is they turn it on in the dark so you see this bright light and you hear like the sizzling from the voltage. And they cracked his cell, rushed up in there, shocked him with the shield, and damn near killed that dude. They carried him out of his cell and brought him to, I believe, what was the intake area. And probably seen him about 9 hours later. When he returned, his head was swollen from them beating him down. And dude was somebody who was, I'm not going to say a knucklehead, but he was in there, you know, always causing ruckus, starting trouble. That beat down humbled the hell out of him. We didn't hear a peep out of him anymore after that. He just did his time quietly. So when I was in the Bing for, you know, being arrested for having a weapon, one day I was on my way to a visit. And, you know, when they transport us through the hallways, all the inmates that are in general population, they gotta, you know, stand up against the wall. So around the time, the rapper Mysonne, he got into a situation, and I saw him in there, and I didn't know him. I knew who he was, but we didn't know each other personally, and he had no idea who I was. I'm just an inmate in the Bing going to a visit. So when I seen him, I was like, hey, yo, Mice. Hey, yo, we down in the Bing, we fucked up. You know, send us something. Meaning send us some food, cigarettes, whatever. I didn't smoke, but I was just like, yo, we fucked up down there. And the guy who was working down there, one of the inmates who was working on the next shift, came down with a whole bunch of shit from, he said, yo, Mysonne sent this down here. And I just want to say shout out to Mysonne, because he had no idea who any of us were that were in the Bing. He didn't know who I was. All I did was ask him, didn't expect anything, and dude showed the love and set us out. So shout out to Mysonne. He looked out. We appreciated that.
The new trend is stay woke. They say stay woke, but are they woke? Or do they play woke as they sleep? Are they the same folks who say, oh, what happened to Fernando Castro was wrong, but won't march into these streets? Or they weep and they tweet about violence from the police every time they see a boy shot, but they get silent every time you speak about a boycott. Because that boy is not their kin. So they go back to sleep and they wake up when another boy gets shot again, and then they hashtag stay woke.
So one day I'm coming from court. I'm in the Bing at the time, and the people who are in the Bing or some type of segregation, whether it's the crazy house, protective custody, the whole, or administrative segregation. Administrative segregation is when they don't want you around nobody. You're like a threat to all of the population for some reason, one way or another. Whether you're cutting people, you are an influence on the inmates because you're like a gang leader or whatever. Anyway, when I'm coming from court, I'm in one of the separate pens because I'm in the hole. This is in the receiving and departure, the R&D area, the intake area. And so everybody comes from court, we placed in different pens. And so I'm in a pen, and there's a lot of chaos, you know, going on in the intake area. And then things all of a sudden got quiet. And I hear the officers talking about, yo, we bring in the leader of the Lions. The Lions was one of the gangs that was on Rikers. You had several gangs. You had the Bloods, Crips. You had the Latino gangs, which are the Latin Kings and the Nieta. And you had a West Indian gang over there called the Lions. And the Lions were pretty strong. And if you've been in Rikers for a while, you kind of figure out the strengths and like who run the jail, who are the gang leaders, et cetera, et cetera. So I was always hearing about the gang leader of the Lions, but I had never seen him. So they was like, yo, they bringing the leader of the Lions in. So when he comes in, he's shackled up crazy. He got the mittens on. The mittens are a device which kind of prevents you from cutting somebody else while you're already handcuffed, because that has also happened. So in come the dude, and he's speaking the patois, you know, West Indian dialect. Blood, clot, fucking police, mom, you hate the pigs, whatever. There's a few of them, like 3 of them. So they all come in, you know, the police tend to them. They take the mittens off. They take the shackles and everything. And when people get to relax a little bit, you know, dudes are kind of sitting their arms through the bars and everybody's just being nosy, looking at everybody. So while I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the dude, no idea who he is. And he got the dreads and all that. And dude is just staring at me. So I'm looking, you know, it's an ego thing now, I guess. So we staring at each other. And dude said, without an accent, straight American, he said, hey, yo, Inch, what up? So I'm like, who the fuck, what's up? You know me from? He was like, yo son, I'm from Edenwald. I came up under you, like I'm a little younger than you. I came up under you. Always watched you. Always kind of wanted to be like you. And you know what happened? Trying to emulate what you was doing, I fuck around and got a double homicide and they trying to give me 50 years. When I went back to my cell that evening, I thought, you know, what a shame it is for somebody to want to follow in my footsteps when at that time I was indulging in nothing but misbehavior and illegal activity. So for someone to want to be like me and end up possibly getting 50 years, that shit fucked me up. That was one of my one of the turning points that said, nah, I gotta do better. I gotta put out there a different example because people are watching and people want to be like me. So that right there gave me a whole new perspective on the job I need to do as a man. That shit was real deep, man.
I heard a lot of war stories about him, so I'm expecting him to be this big gorilla, greasy looking dude that everybody feared. And when I met him for the first time, he was kind of this short, quiet dude, and I was like, this is him? But you know, aside from all of the stories that you hear about him, which probably most of them are true, he's actually a really cool dude. So you know, that was my first initial impression of him.
I remember when I was, you know, in the feds, I was doing my time and I was like, damn, I got like a nice little bit of time to do. So what I did was trying to figure out recreative activities to stay busy with. Watching TV, that shit really didn't do nothing for me. I did a lot of reading. I probably read, you know, I know they say a lot of gentlemen don't read or that we only read when we're in prison, but wherever we at, as long as we read, pick something up, you know, I think that's a blessing. And while I was in, I think I read 500 books, at least. And so I'm reading these books, and I tried to do a little rapping. I said, you know, I'm gonna be a rapper, fuck it. So I was writing, I was rapping, doing the little talent shows. That really didn't hold my interest. I met this guy who was writing books, and he was like, yo, you know, I think everybody has a story. They just gotta wanna tell it and know how to tell it. So I ended up writing my first book in 8 days. The book was called No Regrets. And that was the first draft. I went back and rewrote it by adding 100 pages to it. And I was like, all right, my book is complete, but it wasn't properly formatted. So I would go to the library and I would get a bunch of books and I would see how their paragraphs and how their sentences and everything are all formatted, how they're using quotation marks and using first, second, or third person for their characters. And I just went back and restructured my book until I figured it was perfect. And then I ended up publishing it myself. So it depends on, you know, on the book though. Some of my books took 8 days, some took 2 weeks, some took 6 months. So, you know, it's a process. It depends on where the material is coming from. If it's something that I kind of went through, it's easy to come off. And I'm just, you know, penning quickly. But, and I learned while writing screenplays that it's totally different, at least almost. Where when you're writing a novel, you can write a bunch of narration and you can describe feeling, location, everything in the narration. When you're writing a screenplay, it's up to the director to express or help the characters express emotion, location, etc. The writer, all they're doing is writing is dialogue.
Xavier.